Call, please.
Commissioner Roth?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Pauley?
Here.
Commissioner Mum? Mayor Neely?
Thank you. Well, let's begin with the flag salute. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to make an announcement before we go on the agenda. Betty Mum is under some severe pain. It apparently comes from an accident she was in earlier, but she has nerve damage and she's in severe pain. She cannot turn her head. She came in and spoke to David Frazier and myself, apologizing for her inability to be able to come to these meetings. She was suggesting that maybe she could do it on speakerphone, but she is under pain medication, and I don't know that would be the best situation for making decisions. And our hope is that the therapy she'll be under over the next few weeks, she'll be able to join us again. I indicated if there were any important decisions before us, and we had a tied vote, we might hold a special meeting if necessary. I'm sure the commission agreed to do so. But she probably won't be with us for the next few meetings, and I hope you all join me in our wishes that she successfully deals with this pain she is under. With that, we're going to do a few things under proclamations and all that kind of good stuff, and this is a proclamation. There's been a suggestion that there might be an error in the proclamation, which we can correct if that's true. I'll read the proclamation as read. This proclamation will be read. This is a proclamation, Oregon City, West Linn Rivalry Day, and anybody who's lived in Oregon City for more than a year knows this is a big deal. The proclamation will be reread at a breakfast, and if there is an error, we'll get these corrected. And I'll read this proclamation. Whereas the cities of Oregon City and West Linn wish to recognize the efforts of their citizens to create and maintain a positive family environment where children can learn the value of constructive competition. And whereas the cities of Oregon City and West Linn value tradition and history as essential parts of their communities. And whereas Oregon City High School and West Linn High School, formerly known as Union High School, have competed valiantly in the sport of football continuously since 1921, and since whereas on October 11, 2012, the teams representing these schools will renew their annual rivalry for the 92nd time, and whereas this is the longest continuously played rivalry west of the Mississippi and therefore worthy of recognition, and whereas the City of Oregon City desires that the Pioneers again defeat the Lions, and the City Council of West Linn desires that the Lions again defeat the Pioneers. Now, therefore, we, the Commission of Oregon City and the City Council of West Linn, hereby recognize and commend all citizens who have participated in this annual Gridiron Classic and support the efforts of the current teams by proclaiming October 11, 2012 to be Oregon City West Linn Rivalry Day. We therefore recommend in the spirit of the day that all citizens wear clothing of the appropriate colors and refrain from crossing the river unless business requires until game time. And I will be signing this, as will the mayor of West Linn. We will be presenting this, rereading this proclamation on next Thursday at a breakfast where the football players are honored and where we respectively give them words of encouragement. The questionable words here are Commissioner Smith believes this might be the 93rd.
I was trying to do the math. Maybe it's 91 or 92.
It's 92.
It's 92. She's checked that out. The other thing that concerns me, now this is one we jointly actually sign, but it's referred to, I believe, here at one point as the Willamette Bridge. Is that correct? Anyway, in any case, we know it, of course, as the Oregon City Arch Bridge. But I guess since this is going to be signed by both the mayor of West Lynn and Oregon City, do you mind that it doesn't have that name in this proclamation? Okay, with that.
No comment.
Yeah. So anyway, what's nice about this, and in a moment we're going to do another proclamation. But what's nice about this is the game immediately precedes the festivities, which starts on Friday. That'll occur at the bridge, and the opening of that bridge will be the following Monday. Commissioner Smith President Smith is going to make some other comments. But before we come to that, we have a proclamation related to the opening of the bridge. Whereas Condy B. McCulloch is known as the King of the Oregon Bridge Designers, and he is one of the leading bridge engineers in the United States between the World Wars and was the state's bridge engineer from 1919 to 1935. And whereas beginning in the early 1900s, Condy B. McCulloch argued that bridges should be built efficiently, economically, and aesthetically. And whereas in 1922, Condy B. McCulloch designed a span to cross the Willamette River at Oregon City, and the grand opening celebration of the bridge was held in 1923. And whereas in 2005, 12 of McCulloch's bridges were listed in the National Register of Historic Places, including the Willamette River Bridge, fondly called the Arch Bridge, crossing the river from Oregon City to West Lynn, and parenthetically it should be in quotes the Oregon City Arch Bridge. But in any case, that's not what we have at this moment. Whereas the Oregon Department of Transportation recognized that a significant number of its historical bridge structures were deteriorating in ways conventionally maintenance could not control, and whereas the concern that the structures would be lost to deterioration compelled ODOT, it's the Oregon Department of Transportation, to make fundamental changes in its approach to historic bridge preservation. And whereas in 1910, ODOT and various stakeholders collaborated to begin work on restoring the bridge to its original load capacity, installing upgrades to make the bridge safer, including guardrails, seismic features, and lighting, and to restore the bridge to its original look as much as possible. And whereas the region wished to celebrate the reopening of the bridge, and Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition, Clackamas County Tourism, the cities of Oregon City and West Lynn, Oregon Department of Transportation, the Confederate Tribes, the Grand Ronde, and numerous sponsors believed the reopening of the bridge deserved an area-wide celebration, and established the 2012 Willamette Falls Festival on October 12th through the 14th, 2012. Now, therefore, I, Doug Neely, Mayor of Oregon City, do proclaim October 14, 2012 as reopening of the Oregon City West Lynn Arch Bridge. And I submit a key to the city to be placed in the time capsule being installed in the bridge for historic preservation. I'll be signing this, and I would comment, I've looked at this key, and none of our names are here. So we're giving them a key, and nobody knows who the commissioners are when we members of the
Yes, they
commission,
will.
we're doing this.
Yes, they will.
Oh, they will.
Yes.
Is there something that you're also
Yes.
going to go on there?
It's really
And will it
small.
last as long as this key does?
Yes.
Oh, very good.
Piece of paper?
That's right. Before Commissioner Smith, I wanted to say when the bridge construction started, Commissioner Smith, I think other commissioners did, but Commissioner Smith and I went on a tour that took us into the interior of the arches. I want to mention the tremendous cooperation and the way we, I think, balance each other. I'm a bit claustrophobic, and Commissioner Smith is a little bit afraid of heights. So I proceeded up the arch, walked up the arch, and he followed me. And then he went inside the arch before I did. And so we were able to cancel out our phobias in the process. So thank you very much.
Yes.
And there are various events coming up on the weekend after this coming weekend, and Commissioner Smith is going to go through them because it's going to be a great weekend.
Wait, can I point something out?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of anything. So I went inside.
Oh, really?
You didn't say that
But
2 weeks ago.
But between the two of us, we didn't need you.
And by the way, no one from West Lynn went down into the
That's right.
bottom of the bridge.
That's
so,
true.
just saying. In fact, I don't know if, well, I won't say that. We've been waiting for this for so long, and it's one of those things that now sitting here even talking about it is kind of emotional. It's incredible, and I think that for any of us that have lived in this town all of our lives, and even those that haven't, this is a big deal. And it's not just a big deal because it's a bridge, but it's because of the history of these two cities and their relationship for many, many years. And the rivalry between the two schools, which, man, what a coincidence. And this wasn't planned, that the game fell on the same weekend as the bridge opening. It's incredible. So I wanted to kind of just share some of the events that are going on. I've been helping with the committee to plan the bridge celebration, which is a huge undertaking, and what we have to offer this next weekend after this weekend is amazing. But I want to mention on Tuesday morning, actually, is the Oregon City West Lynn Breakfast next Tuesday. And that's an annual breakfast that the schools have host in Oregon City at the Elks Lodge for years. Both football teams meet for breakfast. Both mayors meet for breakfast. A lot of the commission goes from both cities. Brian Shaw apparently is there too. He says he's on the it's Optimist Club, but it's at the Elks Lodge. The Optimist Club has promoted this for years. It's one of our greatest events. It's a long running tradition. So that's Tuesday, and then Thursday the 11th is the game, the big game, and it's in West Lynn. And so that's exciting. Followed by Friday, where this Friday, October 11th or October 12th, which is the kickoff to this 3-day festival. October 12th, that day is going to be considered an evening of all arts and culture. They have a Ripple Art Walk that's going to be happening. Actually, that goes on through a good portion of that evening till 9 o'clock and runs throughout 3 days. There's a geocache challenge that'll be held throughout the 3 days. A business showcase with Oregon City West Lynn businesses and vendors down on 8th Street. But one of the kickoff events on Friday, October 12th, is the March of the Bands. And this is the thing that I was putting together on the committee, and I'm really excited about it. Oregon City will be on the Oregon City side, West Lynn on the West Lynn side, the two high school bands, and they will be the first really to get out onto the bridge. Both schools will perform several songs on the middle of the bridge. Everyone should be wearing their appropriate colors, hopefully, and that will kick off the weekend. Both schools share the same fight song, but different words. And so those various cities can sing their own words, and we'll see who's louder. After that, the rest of the evening, the bridge will be open for walking. People can go out and see the bridge. There's also that night the Willamette Falls Locks Benefit Dinner, which will be held at the Museum of the Oregon Territory at 6 o'clock. Saturday, the October 13th, is Family Day, Artisan Farmers Market, downtown, costume reenactors that you will be able to meet. There'll be the interactive Ripple Legacy Sculpture. There is going to be painters on the bridge painting. There's a trolley heritage tour throughout the day that goes between both cities. Speakers, authors, experts that will be giving talks at the museum and at the main tent down on the Main Street area. This is an incredible part too. Grand Ronde Tribal Encampment, which will be at the Clackamas Park. from 2 to 6. So there'll be an encampment at Clackamas Park. Great performances with music all throughout that day. Sternwheeler Rose Wine and Cheese event at John Storm Park. At the dock from 7 to 9 that day. Falls film premiere, which is an invitation-only event. And this one, which is unbelievable. We were really working hard to pull this off. There's not very many times in Oregon City where we get to have a great fireworks show. So you will be seeing fireworks over the river Saturday, October 13th, between the two cities. Sunday, October 14th, the Get Active Day. There's a 5K fun run at Clackamas Park, 9 a.m. There's a fun-a-thon, which is run, pedal, paddle, so be on the roads and the river. The rededication of wedding vows on the bridge, which is a piece of history that's really great to the opening of the bridge. There was a wedding in the center of the bridge on the day that the bridge opened, and the renewal of the vows of that ceremony will take place, and it's also open for other couples to join in. So I think you can still sign up for that. There's a place on the website, which is WillamotteFallsFestival.com, that couples can sign up to be part of that, and then there's a reception afterwards. There is the first across the bridge, other than everyone that's been across, but in terms of cars, this is going to be exciting on at 2:30 on that Sunday, which is the kind of a parade across the bridge with antique cars, walkers, bikes, and I said the rededication reception. What time is the actual ribbon cutting? I think it's on
2
Sunday.
o'clock. It's 2 o'clock, I believe. On
2 o'clock.
On Sunday. Oh, yeah, it says that right there. Bridge reopening celebration, 2 o'clock. And then the bridge is open for traffic on Monday. That's a lot of stuff. And this committee that has put this together, it's a lot of people that are extremely busy in their lives, and not only in their lives, but working on what they do for their various cities or counties. This is a collaboration with the Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition, Clackamas County Tourism, the cities of Oregon City Westland, Oregon Department of Transportation, Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and numerous other sponsors. So it will be a great event, and we hope that you all are there.
Can I ask a question? You keep asking us to dress in period costume and then colors. Is there going to be a place to change clothes?
You can dress either in,
A wedding gown?
Don't
period-
be wearing green, Kathy. Jeez.
I think a couple other things too. First of all, I think it's great that Commissioner Smith was part of the group that was identifying and organizing these events, and I thank you so much for your participation in that
It's going to
effort.
be great.
One thing that's on the proclamation I don't think will change, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. We did mention that the bridge was open in 1923. But it was January 1923, and we're having this reopening now towards the end of 2012. The point is, it's slightly more than 10 years to its centennial. And I don't know how we're going to memorialize that, but that should be a big event as well. So anybody, if some of you in the audience decide to become on the commission 10 years hence, I think we need a major event. And one of the reasons is that this was Conde McCulloch's second bridge. The first one was the Youngs Bay Bridge in Astoria. So it's highly significant. I think Oregon City might also be the only bridge that has two Conde McCulloch bridges. Actually, the Oregon City Bridge that goes over the Clackamas here is also a Conde McCulloch bridge. I don't think there's any other city that has two of them. As he was a world-famous bridge designer, and we're very pleased we've got that bridge around. What was really impressive to Rocky and I as we went into the arch, it's a steel bridge. It's not reinforced concrete. It is solid steel. So you're going through this steel above you, steel on the sides, steel below you. Most of that, almost nothing had to be done with it. Most of the rivets were well done, and they were telling us at the time they were experimenting with how they were going to deal with the gunite that gets sprayed on there, the concrete surface that gets sprayed on that. They had to go through various mixtures to get something that stuck appropriately. And yet the stuff that's on there has been on there probably for the most part for that whole period of time. So it is a well-constructed bridge, and the various things that are done to it for seismic and so forth were needed items. But most of the original bridge is still there.
I gotta tell one more little thing, and I'll do this really quick because it's one thing that I told on a tour that I walked around town the other day and have multiple times. But the detail that the state went to make sure this bridge was right is incredible. You may have remembered months before they even started the project of the bridge, there were posters all around town about the light fixtures on the bridge and whether or not anyone had photographs of them. The photographs for most of the bridge that everyone has taken were on postcards, and the distance in which those photographs were taken did not really give a clear detail to what those light fixtures looked like. And I happened to go to Atkinson Church, and Atkinson Church was built in 1924, just a few years after the bridge, and a couple of years after the bridge. And as a visual person, I remember seeing the markings on the obelisks on the bridge that kind of are in this bracket shape like this. And when I walked out of Atkinson Church and I saw the light fixtures on the church, I said, "Oh my gosh, they're the same light fixtures." And so there was a period of time where you may have driven by Atkinson Church, because after I had contacted Susan and some other people at the state, that the state actually went to Atkinson and removed the light fixtures from the church. The light fixtures from the church were what were used to mold the new lights for the bridge. So it's one of those details that people don't know that happened, but it's absolutely amazing.
I'm sure there are going to be reports as we towards the end during our reports to talk about the League of Oregon Cities convention that three of us attended, and there were some very interesting proceedings there. I'm not going to talk about the presentation, the meetings that we attended. However, I was asked to go to a place where there's some awards to be given. Oregon City was to receive one, and it was for safety. We had a low rate of accidents over this last year. And I went in there, and there were a lot of people sitting there from various cities and towns throughout the state, and they were all going to receive awards. And we went through a list. They started with the smaller towns and bigger cities and so forth. And then they went to the awards to this is offered by City County Insurance Services, which I presume is a contractor that we work with. Is that it?
That's a statewide insurance pool.
I don't think they serve the huge cities, but they serve probably most of the cities and counties in the state. And then they started this discussion about the middle cities, and when these awards started going, they were talking about two cities competing over a period of time for first place and so forth. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And then they started announcing the honorable mentions, and then they had an award, a silver award, a runner-up for silver and so forth. And we got the gold medal for safety rates. The runner-up for gold medal was Lake Oswego. and so we actually got the highest honor that was awarded. A rate of, and I'll perhaps let somebody else say what this means, because I'm not quite sure. The rate of 0.55 in fiscal year 2011-12 with 141 full-time employees. And I guess that rate is an accident quote for that. And Westlands was 0.60. And anyway, I had no idea that we were going to get this award, and I'm going to make a couple of comments before I let the city manager come in. When he came in, he noticed that we had a kind of a high accident rate, and he brought his executive staff and says, we got to really deal with safety issues. When they were talking about the awards given in the past and who got them, Oregon City wasn't anywhere on the list. The credit goes to our city manager to recognize how important safety is, and the executive staff that were responding to the directive that David Frazier was giving. And I just want to talk about that. And let you speak to this.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I thank you for those compliments. I also want to mention that the city has a safety committee, and for that safety committee to be effective, we really need a diverse cross-section of employees, really frontline people, as well as our executive team, and I want to recognize them tonight. There's a short list of them here. Elisa Finnegan in Human Resources, Ann Crandall, our Building Maintenance Specialist, Dale Smelzer, Diana Long, Eli DeBerry, Jim Leffler, our HR Director, John Lewis, Public Works Director, Linda Ackerson, Sharon Coughlin, Stephanie Marcinkowitz, sorry, I knew I was going to mess that up, and Tom Morissette, and then we also had a supporting role from staff in Public Works, Linda Gusdorf. So I think that's a remarkable accomplishment for the city. I really appreciate the efforts that committee made. They took their job seriously. There's both union and non-union folks on there, and they're working seamlessly together, which I always like to see. And I was going to save this for my reports, but cities get a lot of awards. Some cities do. We're on a roll right now. We're getting lots of awards, and it's nice to have that happening. But this was one that translates into dollars for our community, and so you may recall that previously in my reports I reported that our workers' compensation premium renewal for the year was approximately $13,000 less than last year's premium. We also received word from our workers' comp insurer that we would be receiving a discount credit for $73,573. That means a total reduction in our premium costs that our citizens have to pay for through their taxes of 42%. And the total dividend is $86,505 for safety. These are the employees, so if you see them out there, pat them on the back because they're doing a great job. Thanks.
Before we go to our general business, we had a citizen and his son that were walking down the promenade one day, and they kept noticing our flagpole with no flag on it. Dennis Turi, who is a minister at one of the churches, felt that that wasn't really right, and he, and I think in combination with some other churches in Oregon City, purchased and donated a flag to the city of Oregon City to be hung on the flagpole. I'm going to present this to Scarlett Archer. It's tremendous when we have individual citizens that step up and, rather than necessarily criticize something that we should have done or shouldn't have done, actually take positive actions to have those things done. And we'll sum it up as soon as possible. Very good. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to recognize Mr. Turi for his for this gift that he gave the city. Any other acknowledgments we should give while we're on a roll?
Look pretty.
Yes.
Oh yes. Well, I think he's under the regular comments, but I'll bring him up first before we go into citizens' comments. If you why don't you just come on up?
Jeez.
I'm bearing good news, and certainly the city is on a roll for awards.
Lloyd just traveled here from Corvallis. He was there most of today and most into the evening, and was texting me a while ago saying I'm en route. So here he is. He went over there to collect these on behalf of the city and the Main Street organization.
Yeah, the city of Oregon City was recognized tonight by the state of Oregon for the two-way Main Street project for an excellence in infrastructure improvement projects. And Eric Wagren, the city engineer that was basically the lead on that was in Corvallis to accept this award, and so this will go to the city. I'm just happy to share it with you all tonight. Recognition of the two-way Main Street project and the completion, in fact, of the $2.5 million streetscape project. So your leadership of this dais got that kicked off 3 years ago when we started doing the scoping and engineering for that project that led to the grants that led to the project. So we should all be, the whole community should be proud of this award.
Very good.
But the city wasn't the only group that got an award tonight from the state. We nominated the Rotary Club of Oregon City as a great partner in a project regarding the Singer Falls Public Art Project, the Lee Kelly piece. The state recognized that partnership for a best partnership project for that artwork. So again, state recognition to the city of Oregon City for a great public-private partnership. And again, the city was an important player, an important partner in this, along with Rotary, along with the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition. And I think downtown had a little bit to play with that, a little role to play. And yet there's more awards. It was truly exhilarating and slightly embarrassing to see the number of awards we collected from the state tonight.
That's why I had to be down there all day, right?
And I was joined by Marsha Wimmer from Rotary, again, Eric Wagren from the City for the Public Works. I was also joined by Paul Culp, one of our newest downtown business owners. He took the animation studio Super Genius private into a separate entity, and it now occupies office space downtown with between 30 and 40 employees. And the state recognized his business success story, the spinoff from Funnelbox into an independent company, and again, the state award for excellence in business success story tonight. So we've got some three great examples of success in our community, public-private partnerships. It's been a real good evening.
Very good.
You have another
Yeah,
one
we
there.
just wanted to know.
Does somebody else need to read it?
Somebody else could if you want.
It
Somebody
doesn't
else-
matter who reads it. The state gave an award. They recognize every year the Downtown Manager of the Year, and so they gave that award to me this year. Credit to Board President Terry Powers for nominating me. Thank you. But we've done some good work in this city. We continue to do so. You've got an award-winning, nationally accredited downtown revitalization program that's making great things happen, and I'm pleased to be a part of the partnership. So if not a round of applause for you all, I think a round of applause for everybody that...
Thanks to the Main Street program, thanks to the city, thanks to the businesses that have done thrive so well on the Main Street. I know we've lost a few in the process, but we've gained more than we've lost in that period of time. Far more, I think, a 2-to-1 ratio. And I want to point out, not all those businesses that left us were failing businesses. I know several that were changing their business models, went elsewhere. We were all sorry to see Hops Upholstery, which I think was with us for almost 80 years down there through generations, leave. However, both Janet and oh help me, her brother Andy. Both of them had their own upholstery businesses that are still doing well. I've been informed by both of them they are doing well. They've just gone to a kind of a different business model in the process. So I wanted to mention that, and everybody involved in this deserves a pat on the back, including ourselves. And it's been a great job. With that, we'll go into regular citizen comments, and would Tom O'Brien and Kevin Hunt please come forward?
Tom O'Brien, Oregon City. I don't have any awards to announce, but I do have a show and tell. I happened to notice a few of these around town today, and I thought that it was worth noting, particularly in light of Mr. Fowler's comments at our earlier Urban Renewal Commission regarding about misrepresentation and the fact that he himself is very much against such misrepresentation. When I saw no new taxes at the top of this sign, I went to the voter's pamphlet and I looked at Measure 3407. I also looked at the text of the measure, and nowhere in there did I see anything regarding taxes. I'm at a loss, quite frankly, to understand how we could be talking about no new taxes relative to Measure 3-407. Perhaps someone who is supportive of this voting no could inform me and help me understand what is meant by that. I would welcome the explanation.
I don't think anybody here is responsible for that sign, so I doubt if we're going to be able to say anything on it.
I know Mr. Fowler is very interested in true statements, and certainly he wouldn't have anything to do with it.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Kevin Hunt, Oregon City. I have three things I'd like to touch on. The first one is just a little bit of extra trivia about the Arch Bridge that isn't generally mentioned anymore, but that I think is very interesting and pretty neat, and that is that a very prestigious organization, the American Association of Architects, in 1922 actually voted that bridge as the most beautiful bridge in the United States.
Wow, that's right.
Incredible. The second thing I want to touch upon is just I'm only doing it impromptu because I'm just as shocked as Mr. O'Brien. I hadn't seen that sign before. There was a very excellent and a very fairly conducted candidates debate yesterday. However, there's one thing that kind of disturbs me a little bit, and that is that debate was conducted. The venue of that debate was the Abernethy Center. The Abernethy Center, which is owned by Abernethy Center Incorporated, which is an alter ego of Dan Fowler. One of the candidates who was appearing there, I learned later and verified today at the Secretary of State's website, the largest contribution received from that candidate was from Mr. Fowler, who was in attendance in his own building where this forum was being held. And I just feel that it creates quite an image of impropriety under those circumstances for the gentleman not to stand up and just, in the interest of full disclosure, to indicate that he, in fact, was the largest contributor or a contributor to one of the candidates who was debating in his building. Again, you know, the presidential debates are going on tonight, and I don't think anyone would think that it would even be possible in this country that the presidential debates would be held in a building owned by someone who donated a lot of money only to one of the two presidential candidates. We would all be up in arms. But it seems like when it happens in a small town, nobody gives a damn about it. Now, moving on to the third issue. And I realize this one's going to put a lot of people on the spot, but they're not going to be on the spot nearly as much as candidates are right now who don't know what to do and don't have any guidance. And I'm not going to mention any names in this one because it affects everybody. It has come to my attention that there are candidate signs that are in the prohibited right-of-way on properties that are owned primarily by one individual, and that there have been complaints made to city staff about this, and the response has been, we're not going to do anything about it. I find this highly objectionable. And it may be that, and I'm sorry, I see my red light's on, if I could complete my thought. It may be that, thank you. It may be that, in fact, this policy applies across the board to every candidate, but if that's the case, I would like it stated publicly and stated now. I think it puts everybody in an awkward position, of course, to have an ordinance on the books you're not going to enforce. But if that's the case, you need to say so, because otherwise it puts certain people at a disadvantage. And but if you're not going to enforce it, I suggest it still puts certain people in a very bad position. People who currently are sitting on this commission, who could be attacked by the public if they take advantage of this same loophole because this is a city ordinance. So I would like to suggest that perhaps if there's no time to enforce it, maybe a friendly phone call could be made to the owner of these properties, and if there's a refusal to move the signs where they belong, I'm respectfully, very respectfully demanding that it be enforced. This isn't a fair situation. And I've brought this issue of the sign ordinance before this commission repeatedly. Nothing has been done. I'm not even going to go into the other aspects of it. I think it's a proper decision that's been made by staff not to get involved in residents having more than one campaign sign in their yard. I appreciate that. That's a great decision. But, you know, this other problem is a big problem because there happens to be a lot of properties owned by this individual or his alter ego corporations in this town. And if he's going to be allowed to get away with this and supporting one candidate and opposing one ballot measure, then I think that same right and privilege should apply to every citizen in this town. Thank you.
I guess I assume that the ordinance applies to a piece of property, not to a person that might have many pieces of property, but I do not know. We can look into that, but
It's one sign per street frontage.
I believe the
And
city
that's-
recorder
that's
hands
it.
out guidelines on these
Right.
signs to candidates when they sign up, so,
and
and Mr. Hunt is right, the commission knows this, that we have a sign ordinance that is much more comprehensive than our staffing level allows us to enforce, and we just can't and don't consciously do not enforce it. It is awkward, it is a difficult situation for staff, certainly.
But I don't think there's anything that precludes a person that has several pieces of property having one sign on each of those pieces of property.
That's
Not
not the
my
problem.
complaint.
The problem
My
is they're in
complaint
the
is that
public
they're in the
right-of-way.
right-of-way.
Well, if they're in the public right away, they should be pulled.
Well,
Yes.
But they're
They
not.
should be pulled. I mean, this has been an issue before, and they were pulled.
They were
before.
pulled, right.
I think we have to give direction to the
you
city
want to,
manager.
would you like to
manager
get an
pull them out of the
explanation
public.
first before you just say that?
Yeah. Well, go
Okay,
ahead.
I would like you to have it because I want everyone to know what the consequences, unintended and intended, both might be. So, Mr. Conkle, could you highlight what our practice has been in enforcing the sign code with regard to these signs?
I think it goes back to, once again, we've had this discussion at several goal-setting meetings throughout the years of the ability of not only the sign code, but the enforcement component of that, and the lack of ability to have staff available to do that. You also need to remember, and Mr. Sullivan can correct me here or add as needed, we cannot go after signs based on content. We are content neutral in terms of signs. If you would like us to pull all signs in the public right-of-way, that will include all A-frames on Main Street, 7th, Malala. It will be based on the public right-of-way, not the content of the sign.
Excuse me, but I don't want to get into a legal argument with Mr. Conkle, but that's ridiculous. That isn't a sandwich board on a sidewalk is not the same thing. We're not talking about the same thing. This is a ludicrous statement, and I'm again respectfully demanding that this city either repeal the ordinance or enforce it equally
Okay,
across the board.
Just a minute. I think this discussion has to be now between staff and commission. Okay.
Very well.
Is not the ordinance that dictates signs for election, is that still under just the same general code that
We do
applies?
not differentiate
That's
between a commercial sign and a political sign. You are allowed one sign on your property without a sign permit, and off the top of my head, I believe it's 2 by 2. There are no signs allowed within the public right-of-way, and that's the issue. We do not have the ability to regulate content. It is based on the size of the sign, the location of the sign.
If we give direction to, and we still can do it, but if we give direction to the city manager, we have to recognize that it's going to apply to all signs in the public right-of-way.
Okay, could I bring up this? In the last election where I was elected, signs were pulled out of the right-of-way, and nothing was taken off of Main Street. So it didn't affect anything else.
We can take the risk that that we can direct them to remove the political signs. Apparently, we're taking also the risk that somebody can come after us because it's a content issue. Is that correct?
Mayor, I want to address that comment, though Commissioner Roth made it. I'm thinking that was probably because we make an exception if we get a complaint and it turns out to be a public safety hazard or a vision hazard at a triangle. We make an exception if it's deemed to be a safety hazard, because we don't want people. We can make an exception for that if it's deemed to be a safety. That's been the city's practice for 20-some years. I'm perfectly willing to change it upon direction from the commission.
So I think if this commission's going to give direction and we have the issue of content before us, if we're going to talk about only political signs being removed from the right-of-way, we probably have some risk associated.
We have an issue.
So if somebody's going to suggest that we give direction to the city manager, I think we need to be cautious. Commissioner, excuse me, let me get on here. Yeah, in any case, we're having to discuss, we got other people on the list, but we're talking about this specific issue at the moment, so we'll go ahead among the commissioners then. Commissioner Smith.
I don't know if this is a topic we discussed at one time or if this is just another city where the same conversation happened, but in my memory, if a sign is placed in the right of way, really anyone can remove it. Period. But they better make dang sure that the sign that they pull as a public citizen is actually in the right of way. Because if they pull a sign that's on private property, they're going to be. I think that's
It's trespass.
right. So I mean, any citizen in this city can pull a sign if it's in the right of way. As far as I know.
But we'll yield to the attorney on that.
But they better make sure it's in the right of way. And I don't know how that relates to sandwich boards, because I can't imagine that. I've heard this discussion. I'm not saying that everyone should go out there and do that, but how does that apply to sandwich board on the sidewalk versus a campaign sign in the right of way?
Again, I don't think you can make a difference on the basis of
Right.
content.
But is the statement correct that any citizen could go ahead and poll it
I don't
at their own
recommend
risk?
that.
I don't recommend
I think
either, but I think
the city is the custodian of the public right-of-way, and you're authorized to do it. And I'm not sure that you want to deputize other people to do it on your behalf.
No, I think all he's saying that person at their own risk probably.
I sure as heck won't be out there pulling signs. I can tell you that.
If somebody's going to do, if somebody, well, hold on, we're still having a dialogue here, and I would caution that if somebody takes that as a right, you do not take any speed limit signs out of the public right of way.
Those are our signs.
I guess I'll leave it to the commission. We have some people that also want to speak to this issue to come back. Does anybody have any objection to bringing them forward?
To what?
We have citizens that want to come back. Some have spoken already. Any problem with bringing them forward?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you raise your hands if you're talking about this specific issue? Okay. Mr. Guile, and then we'll have you come forward as well, and then the other two come forward.
Can I say one more thing, or should I wait till afterwards?
No, you go ahead and you make your comments.
I guess the point that was made earlier, I think, is semi-true. When you're sitting up here in the office, and you are a current city commissioner, if the city said right now they weren't going to enforce the sign codes, I still would not be putting my signs out in the public right of way. Period. So it does create an unbalance there. I follow the sign code. I follow it as best as I can because that's what I need to do as a city commissioner. So there is an issue with that, I think, that concerns
Tom,
me.
you want to come up now, and then after that we'll have Marjorie and Kevin come forward. Introduce yourself. The standard.
The Tom and Tom show. Tom Guile, Oregon City resident. I'm glad, Rocky, you mentioned that. It's come as a question. You said individuals got to be very careful. I guess there's a law you can break if you go into people's yards. We've heard that on the news. You're all familiar with the gateways to Park Place neighborhood. We spent a lot of time cleaning those up on Clackamas River Drive as well as the Redland Road. do a lot of gardening there. Right now, on the corner of Redland and Holcomb, there must be 20 signs. We talked about it at the last Park Place neighborhood meeting. Somebody even nailed to the trees garage sale signs. And we were thinking that it's time that it's not just candidate signs, it's just every sign that possible. There are now approximately 20 signs on that corner where it used to be a nice clean corner where you could see the flower beds. And you were mentioning the fact that this should be the city's responsibility to take those out. But being the chair of the CIC, I'm wondering if a neighborhood is allowed to say, this is our gateway, that is a right-of-way, we'd like to keep that area clean. And I'm wondering if we have the authority as a neighborhood association to say, it's not just candidate signs, it's all the signs. And you can't nail them to the trees, and you can't just block the whole right-of-way. And I was wondering if I could get some kind of guidance.
I guess I'd make the comment that probably anything we've done in recognition of neighborhood associations or everything we have not given you that authority. I'm sure there's nothing that we've done that gives you that
But
authority.
if you want to clean up an area that you're responsible for, and it says Park Place Neighborhood Association, cleans this area.
Just don't come back that you've been given a go-ahead.
Oh, I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to come to is, as an individual, if it's in the right-of-way, you probably could, without take up all those for sale signs and garage sale signs, and to keep it clean. I'm wondering if that's against the law. I know you can't go into people's yards, but if it is on a corner right-of-way, can an individual or a neighborhood, is it against the law to do that? That's what I'm trying to find out. Is it against the law to clean up that area?
I don't think the city attorney is going to give legal advice on this, but I will say this.
I'll look this way.
And I don't think the chief's going to do that either. The situation is that when those folks put those signs in there at that gateway, I'll bet they didn't ask the city. I bet they didn't get a permit. I bet they didn't ask the neighborhood association. They probably didn't ask anybody who lives around there. They just put them there. Okay? So the same will and freedom to ignore a code that we don't enforce that got the sign there, that same degree of cleanliness or fortitude could be exercised to take the sign out, as far as I'm concerned. But the city can't tell you. The city can't tell you to go do it or not do it.
And I wasn't asking that. I'm just asking, could somebody get in trouble? Is
Right.
there
And I'm
I
just
know
gonna-
there's a law from what
Yeah.
I've seen on the news.
So I'm going to make a confession here, just to have some kinship here, because I am so frustrated with having a sign code I can't enforce. My background is enforcement. This bugs me not to be able to do this. And I think the commission has balanced priorities with limited budgets. They've kept their promises under the fire annexation promise not to raise taxes, because frankly, a program that's really effective, given how many years, decades it's been that we really haven't enforced this the right way, we would have to have a year-long education campaign. We have to grandfather some of the signs that are already up just to make it politically palatable. And over time, we could do this. Mr. O'Brien and I have had long conversations about this because he's a passionate advocate for cleaning up our city of sign clutter. We have a lot of it. We know it's a problem. We're going to keep talking about it at every one of our retreats until someday it rises to the top among the other priorities that we have. So a confession that I'll make is that in another city, once upon a time where I was a resident and the city didn't have the staff to really enforce these sign codes, I frequently walk around the neighborhood on my own time, off duty, wearing a T-shirt on my way to the farmer's market. Oh, there's a garage sale sign posted to a tree in the right-of-way that I knew was in the right-of-way. I just took it down, folded it up, put it in the trash on the way home.
Okay.
All I'm saying is there's no law against citizens trying to keep their city tidy and clean.
We
But
thought
we
about-
we can't give you carte blanche
Okay.
to go
We
out.
thought about taking
Yeah,
those signs.
I think we got to be careful here.
Okay, I understand
Our legal attorney here is.
It's falling out of his chair.
You know what?
Just as a sidelight.
We have. I'm not going to ask him his opinion.
Okay.
I'm going to say if you make a decision to take that action, in other words, you are essentially enforcing a code.
Okay.
I assume there may be some risk to it, and I would caution you to realize that.
We almost thought as Park Place neighborhood, if when somebody put something to a tree, of taking the sign up to them and up to their garage sale and saying, can you appreciate that those trees don't appreciate a nail in them any more than if we nailed this to you? But we thought we better not do that either.
May I make a suggestion?
Yep.
I know in the county, from previous experience, the public right-of-way is 27 feet from the middle of the road. Is there something in Oregon City that would tell us what the public right-of-way is?
Yes, there is. It's in the sign code.
Do you know what it is offhand?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
But it's in there.
It's determined
It
by the
spells it
street
out very clearly.
classification. It's determined by the
So
street
it changes.
classification. It depends on the plat map. It's not
And also,
consistent.
there's an issue there. A lot of the older houses did not have right-of-way
That's
taken away from them. A lot of them put sidewalks in, and from anything that you could possibly see, you would think it was public right-of-way. We have several houses like that, and it's not public
Okay.
right-of-way. So
That's-
that would be a very dangerous approach to take,
Yeah.
especially in the older neighborhoods.
One lighthearted comment, when I worked at the city of West Lynn, it's funny, even if we as Parks Department or anything else put out signs on the streets, the Public Works Department would pick up the signs and put them in the basement. Even the city could not put out signs.
Okay, we got to get input from the others, so Tom, go ahead.
Yes, Tom O'Brien, Oregon City. Just a couple of comments on this issue. I think most of you are aware that I've had a keen interest in improving the opportunities for developers to come into our city and grace us with their businesses. One of the things that I feel very strongly is happening, we are not presenting our best face. We look terrible. We look like the McLaughlin Corridor, minus strip clubs, to be perfectly honest with you. That's the impression we give to the outside world. I would not invest my money in Oregon City based on that cosmetic approach you have. I agree with David. You had an opportunity at your retreat in January. You made a decision to support looking at the sign ordinance, reworking it, redoing it, getting citizens involved. And I understand Tony's situation from a manpower standpoint, that it's something we can't get working on until December or so. I am perfectly content, even though we're 3 years into the allocated budget, 3 months into the allocated budget. Mike's department for code enforcement was given additional funding and additional manpower that would be required to enforce these codes. I would suggest before we even begin studying and educating of the citizens, that we as a city could remove those signs which are in violation on our own property and premises. There are 2 signs directly across from this building that are nailed to trees that are in total violation. They should be taken down and put onto appropriate sign posts rather than being in violation. So let us use this opportunity with these complaints that are coming at every election cycle and put the emphasis that's needed to develop a proper code. We have at least a dozen items that are available as signs today which were not even thought of when our current code was adopted. Those 12 items are unregulated totally. And we don't enforce, as David says, for the past 20 years we have not enforced codes. If I'm concerned about political signs, I'm really as concerned about the Dale's Auto Parts sign that really gives a bad impression at one of the entrances to our city. We have a political sign hanging on a building for an individual who has been out of office since 1996, I believe. I don't understand it, folks. Thank you.
Right, you do.
Marjorie Hughes and Kevin Hunt, please come forward. Marjorie first.
Her office.
Good evening. Margie Hughes. I live in Oregon City. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the signs and the signs. I'm a real estate a broker, and we dealt with this with West Lynn and some of the other cities in Oregon. We do use sandwich boards for our open houses. Our clients expect it. They expect us to gather people into their homes that are for sale. With West Lynn, the rule was none. Then we renegotiated, and they can be there for the weekend. They cannot be left permanently. The signs that we put up for sale, the permanent signs, are put up by a sign company, and they may or may not be in the strip, because they're designed for people to be able to drive up and pull out a sign, but they're not permanent. Once the house is sold, the signs are taken down immediately. So some of us that are in the business, we do have a necessity for using signs, and we appreciate that they're not picked up, because we police ourselves. As far as the political signs, we that work in the political arena and have campaigns, we instruct our candidates and we also instruct our volunteers. However, sometimes we have volunteers who get overzealous on a weekend or whatever, and we end up with signs in the road right away. But we do call our candidates and ask them to place the signs. And if someone calls and says they have a sign placed in their yard and didn't want it, we pick it up immediately, because that's how we keep our candidates and our elected officials from getting a black eye from that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak again, because I'd just like to remind the Commission that a few months ago I provided you with a content-neutral way out of this problem, and you declined to address it. I actually drafted an ordinance for you. It was an amendment to your current sign ordinance. It dealt with this issue very simply, with avoiding all content-based problems, and that was this, that I don't have it in front of me, but I'll just summarize it. From a certain number of days, I think it was 30 or 60 days prior to any scheduled public election, to 30 days after that election, that certain provisions of your sign ordinance would not apply. Then it applies to everybody. Then you don't have this content-based problem. The issue is equal enforcement. You know, I'm not in favor of running out and pulling everybody's business signs up. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying if you're gonna have a law, you got to enforce it, or you're breeding absolute disrespect for the law. And again, I mean, as Commissioner Smith noted, what kind of position does that put him, incumbent Commissioner Polly, in? When as commissioners, I mean, they're going to be responsible. They're going to follow the code that they themselves have sworn to uphold. But there's a clear pattern going on in this city where certain people don't feel bound by this, and they know they can get, and they have a clear signal, an absolute signal they can get away with it. I would like to ask maybe that, maybe I'll email you this example again. You don't need to wait till December. It's too late for this election cycle. But, I mean, you could make an emergency ordinance out of it. I mean, we seem to have addressed that before. Well, you can shake your heads, but this is a lot more of an emergency than putting the explanatory statement in was. Thank you.
Which was not voted as an emergency.
I have a question.
Before you do that, Commissioner Smith's on. Was it for this particular topic?
Sorry.
Well, no, it went off, but I have another point. I would
Well,
just
no, I'd
say-
like Harry
There we go.
Paul go
Okay.
ahead
Well,
first.
that's okay. He's ahead of me.
No, he's on it. Phil Rotwell had this before this issue came up. Now, he may have something to say about it, but he was actually on the list before this issue came up.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
if Mr. Rothbach wants to speak to this issue, he may come forward. Okay.
On this issue.
Okay, so we're continuing on this particular discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Hunt's comments made me think of something. Are there cities that separate out types of signs and have different rules for the types of signs? For example,
Cannot do that in Oregon on the basis of content. So you cannot
cannot.
distinguish real estate signs from political signs.
You can't do it like sandwich boards, though?
You can
Types
do
of
it
signs?
on categories without regard to content.
Right. So
Content.
categories.
Right.
So that might be a solution
That
to
might be.
do a future agenda
City of
item.
Portland
or-
licenses sandwich boards,
Okay.
and that is one way of dealing with that.
So there are some ways maybe that we should talk about.
And also the
Right.
time, it sounds like the time frame.
There's a time. There is an issue. I just sent both Mr. Conkle and Mr. Frazier a case that came out of a federal court back east, in which it's not quite clear because there was no final decision on it, but an attempt by a city to say X days before and X days after is on the basis of content for political signs.
Right.
Can't do that either.
Not even if it's Many years after?
No.
Okay.
So can we put that on a future agenda item for types of signs, or is that something we'll talk about?
Well, actually, I think that's one of the things that Mr. Kunkel's going to be studying in his department and bringing back to the commission. That's in from the goals last year. That was the compromise that we could reach. We didn't have enough, and just a reminder, the extra code enforcement person in the division was not for the sign code enforcement program. It was actually to deal with the backlog of current code violation cases that were in there that weren't necessarily sign related.
Mr. Roden. Your turn. We're going on to unless the commission has a specific direction. Unless the city commission has a specific direction wants to direct our city manager to go to, and I don't know what that would be.
Would it be possible, we have that program that I can't get to work on my phone, but the, what is it called? OC
Go request.
Go request. That if people see something, they could put it on there, and it could be addressed with a phone call or something?
Our codes are supposed to be complaint driven. That's what our code enforcement people always say. I don't know if we get a specific complaint whether they're going to go out and do it or not. That's under a different department. But on many occasions when we brought that up, we said because of the lack of manpower, we generally operate on a complaint basis as opposed to just going out and enforcing the code.
That's correct.
So if we documented it on that forum,
That would be complaint driven, and we would go out and go through the proper procedures on it. Yes.
what if we documented it and then just took the sign out ourselves?
I would not want to put ourselves in a. We do not want to be.
No,
code
if we're
enforcement
sure of, this, I'm not saying me, I'm saying citizens. If they're sure of their right-of-way,
Commissioner, I'm not going
You're
to...
trying to give the authority of the police chief to give law enforcement capabilities to the citizen. I think it's
no,
a
I'm just
mistake.
documenting something. It's not giving authority to anyone. We already have the authority to go out and take the signs down as a public. I'm just documenting it.
Oh,
I'm
I
not-
see what you're saying. To the citizens that are here, our codes are complaint driven. You have a specific complaint on a sign, direct it through code enforcement as a complaint. We've got that capability right now.
We do. We have been traditionally so understaffed in the past that we weren't able to be proactive in enforcing a lot of city ordinances. The City Commission did give us some additional manpower in code enforcement. That person is going to be half code enforcement, half parking. They started yesterday.
Stick it to them.
Are they working overtime yet?
So as you can see from that, it's going to be a little while before they get up to speed, and they're
Yeah.
really familiar with their job, be able to start absorbing some of those additional duties.
Okay, so rather than citizens taking this into their own hands, which may have some risk to the citizens, we do have a response driven by complaint to code enforcement. That's it. So.
Thank you.
No, Mr. Rock.
All done. I have something different.
I have something on that matter.
Mayor,
we're never going to get
through our
I want to set this record straight because I think what you've just stated, Mayor, is misleading.
Okay.
I had sat down a number of months ago with our code enforcement officer, Nancy Bush. Arranged an appointment with her to meet with her. I complimented her on the fact that she is working the city now on a day-to-day basis rather than running helter-skelter. I think that's a tremendous idea. I asked her, I said, I know you've got a lot of priorities, Nancy. I said, but if I were to submit a citizen request for specific signs, such as Dale's Auto Parts, to be brought into compliance, I don't want to overload you. I don't want to create too much work for you. How many complaints would you be comfortable with my sending you to respond to? Her answer was 0. I will not enforce any sign ordinances in this city.
We'll let the Code enforcement is done with the police department, and we'll let our police chief address this particular issue. Are you happy?
Not really sure I want to. No, in the past, that has certainly been the case. And I think part of the issue goes back to the content and how we get into issues of selectively enforcing content of signs. And I think that was some quicksand that we weren't sure that we really wanted to get into, especially lacking the manpower to enforce it, everything throughout the city, I'm sure you all realize how many garage sale signs go up on a weekly basis, and that would literally be a full-time job for one of our people to go around and just remove garage sale signs. And then, of course, when we get into the political season, that's amplified very much. So it's a tricky situation, and I'm actually looking forward to when it's resolved at a level that gives us clear directives that we can actually act upon it. I think that would be the best thing for all of us to come to an agreement on.
I think I think we're kind of done, but I'm going to just take one more moment. Assertions have been made as to who has been putting signs in the right-of-way. Unless you, in fact, observed a person doing so, I don't think you've got any basis for making that assumption. We had a specific person referred to in some of the testimony here.
Oh.
And yeah, it was. And you can't make an assumption about who put the sign in the right-of-way unless you just can't make the assumption. So I think it's unfortunate when somebody makes an accusation against an individual unless they were observed doing something. With that, Mr. Roark.
Are you sure? My name's Philip Roark. I live in Oregon City here. And I'm here to basically give thanks to John Lewis, the Director of Public Works. A few weeks ago, I was driving in the evening down around by where the cove's going to be, where the trail goes from Oregon City to Gladstone. And some fella went across that intersection on his bicycle about 20 miles an hour. So I asked John Lewis if he would put up a sign there for people to stop there, especially bicycles. This guy probably did 15, 20 miles an hour in front of me. And I was amazed how I was received by John, Mr. Lewis. And Monday, the sign went up. So I'm here to thank John Lewis for what he did. That's all I have to say. One more thing.
Go ahead.
Like you all. As far as this sign issue goes, maybe there should be a notice put in the newspaper to let people know about the garage sale signs and just the campaign signs. Just a short notice in the paper to let people know that they need to take them down when they're done. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I think we found that John Lewis has taken the position of Public Works. He's making it his own position, and I'm very, very pleased with actions that we know that he's been taking. And I believe the city manager may have contacted all of us to ask whether we should go for a search or promote within. When he asked me that, I asked if he had looked to the recommendations of our previous Public Works Director, and she said, well, you should promote John Lewis. And I think that was the direction we gave to the city manager, rather than go through the expense of a major search for a Public Works Director.
No, you did not give me the direction to do that.
Well,
that's my decision alone, and
Okay.
I made it for professional, meritorious reasons based on his experience and training.
Well, okay, I will say the city manager called me up and
I
said...
appreciate the encouragement I received.
Yeah, the Public Works Director, I think, called me up and asked what did I think about it. So that was a direction, that is true. Direction's given at this particular table. But in any case, I think it's very clear that we have an excellent Public Works Director. With that, we'll go on to the rest of the agenda. Anything anybody wants polled in terms of the adoption of the agenda, from the consent agenda? No. Hearing none, we'll go into general business. We have before us a heritage tree nomination, and I believe Pete Walters is going to make the recommendation. Fortunately, ours is not a heavy agenda. Before he does that, I want to say that I believe if you go on OPB's second TV channel, you'll be able to look at the debates after the fact.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to ask everybody to do so, but for one specific reason. My granddaughter goes to the University of Denver, and she was one of the few lucky people that got drawn to actually attend there. So I'm going to be looking for her in the audience. So I'm probably going to pay more attention to when they're focusing on the audience to see if I can see my
Okay, Doug, how
granddaughter.
are we going to tell who she is? Is she 6'7"?
She looks nothing like me, but she's very attractive. I probably will announce at the next commission meeting whether I saw her or not. With that, Pete Walters, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mayor Neely, and good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I'm going to summarize some of the decisions and recommendations of the Natural Resources Committee with respect to a tree that was nominated that has been nominated as an Oregon City Heritage Tree. The tree is growing in the alleyway next to 713 Polk Street. And following analysis of the attached staff report and attachments, and after consideration of testimony by the abutting property owner and the nominating applicant, the Natural Resources Committee determined that this walnut tree does not meet the applicable criteria for designation as a heritage tree. The Natural Resources Committee voted 5-1 at their last meeting not to recommend designation of the tree as an Oregon City Heritage Tree. The tree in question is a black walnut tree. It is approximately 65 feet tall with a diameter of 47 inches. On June 11th, the owner of the property, Mr. Marshall Beck, his property abuts the alley where the tree is growing, applied for approval of a street tree removal permit. And as required by code, Mr. Beck submitted an arborist report. On the same day, a nomination for heritage tree status was submitted by Mrs. Mary Kenny Norval, who lives across the street. The nomination request was also accompanied by an arborist report. And so we had two arborist reports at that point, one stating that the tree was healthy and the other stating that the tree was a hazard. Based on the need to look at further information with respect to that tree, the Planning Department got the contract with Terrence Flanagan, Board Certified Master Arborist, to do a hazard analysis of the tree. And using two different methodologies, one quantitative and one qualitative, Mr. Flanagan determined that the tree is not a hazard at this time. So before any decision could be made or will be made with respect to street tree removal protocol, the decision must be made with respect to the heritage status of the tree. So I will briefly state what the Natural Resources Committee determined. Based on the criteria for designation of a heritage tree in Oregon City Code 12.08, the determination was that the tree doesn't meet those criteria. If the City Commission concurs with the Natural Resources Committee and with the staff recommendation, staff will process Mr. Beck's application for street tree removal. Mr. Beck will be permitted to remove the tree pursuant to Oregon City Code 12.08 and mitigate for its removal as a non-hazardous street tree by the planting of 8 replacement trees in a location to be determined. If you have any questions about the staff recommendation with respect to the heritage tree criteria, I'd be happy to answer those.
I do have a question. I'm a little confused. If we have two reports that say that the tree is not a hazard, why are we recommending removal?
Well, what we're evaluating tonight is whether the tree should be designated as a heritage tree or not.
Right, and that precludes the removal, right?
Well, if the tree is a heritage tree, one of the criteria for designation as a heritage tree is whether the tree is hazardous or not hazardous, but there's also the determination. I can go into the staff report in more detail with respect to that. The criterion that deals with hazard for designation, there are 4 criteria. The first criteria for designation as a heritage tree is that the tree be of landmark importance to the city of Oregon City due to age, size, species, horticultural quality, or historic importance. The NRC concurred with staff that this did not.
Except for the beaver coin, right?
Well, the beaver coin determination was inconclusive.
Okay.
One statement said that it was not next to the tree. The other statement said it was. Yeah. So we could not use that as a determination. Yeah. It was very interesting, though, and there's a good article about the beaver coin in there. The second criterion is that this tree be listed as a state heritage tree designated by the Oregon Department of Forestry, and this tree is not listed that way. The third criteria, or C, is that the tree is a rare species or provides a habitat for rare species of plants, animals, or birds. And the Natural Resources Committee determined that it was not. And finally, the one with respect to hazardous conditions is that the tree not be irreparably damaged, diseased, hazardous, or unsafe, or that the applicant is willing to have the tree treated by an arborist and the treatment would alleviate any damage, disease, or hazard. The tree has been topped severely in 2 locations at 2 different times. One at 25 feet above the ground and the other at 35 feet. And in response to the cutting of the crown of the tree, is regrown very significantly with some pretty good size, healthy branches. At this time, all of the arborists who looked at the tree said that it looks like it's pretty sound. But there's more to a hazard determination than just whether the tree is sound. It also looks at whether there are targets on the ground and whether the targets can be moved or not. I
think I know what you mean. You just might make reference to what you mean by targets.
Yeah, targets on the ground being houses, cars, and things of value, and people as well. In the future, 5 to 10 years, maybe later, if the branches become heavier with growth, then you may see problems. But the report from Terry Flanagan talks about that in some detail. In order to alleviate that kind of hazard, a trained arborist would do a specific type of pruning to reduce the weight of those branches.
I really don't have a problem with your staff report. I just didn't understand that balance.
Sure, yeah. And so, there's a balance, definitely. Ultimately, the report that staff relied on was the report by Terry Flanagan, which stated that this tree is not an immediate hazard. Therefore, we would base any future determination about street tree mitigation on a determination that the tree is not currently a hazard. That does not mean it can't be removed. It just means that the number of trees that are replanted is higher. In this case, 8 is what the code requires.
I happen to be there simply because they were interviewing for a candidate at that time, so I heard the testimony. What was interesting to me is if the tree is in the public right-of-way, I guess anybody can nominate it for heritage status.
Correct.
And that was kind of interesting to me, where you had a person making the nomination and a person whose property had given up the right-of-way there. There may be cases where we get a nomination that comes before us and that we approve it, but it is in fact in the right-of-way in front of somebody's house and may not be that happy about it. But it never occurred to me that would be a part of the process, and I have no problem with it. But it was interesting. I don't think I've got any biases associated with being there. I made no comments during the period, and I just want to confirm that.
I don't see a problem here.
Okay.
Anybody else have any ex-party contacts on this thing? Anybody else have an interest in this financially? Okay.
With that, does somebody want to?
I believe Mr. Beck is
Okay.
here tonight.
Yeah, fine.
And thank you.
Mr. Beck, you want to come forward and speak?
I'm Marshall Beck. I'm the owner of 713 Polk, and the tree I'd like to take down, I mean, it's been determined not to be hazard, but I think with the arborist reports that cities came up with and the lady across the street has came up with, we're done from the ground. The arborist report that I put together from my guy was from in the tree, and it is the branches that are attached are not as strong as people make them out to be, because they are very big and they're very heavy. My garage is in the back, so my wife has to drive in and out of there every day to go to work. And we literally kind of like this time of year, we run down the deck to get to the house because she's literally been knocked to the ground twice with walnuts. But that's, be that as it may. I mean, I know this is just for the determination of the heritage tree, but just a little background on where we're at. And I just redid my whole house, and it's basically just destroying everything around. So paint, roof, deck, that kind of stuff, and a few more dents in my new pickup truck, but hey, I guess that's part of the deal. But I guess it's up to you guys to make your determination on the heritage tree, and then I'll proceed forward on, if we want to trim it back or take it out or whatever we want to do with it.
Just to make certain, the applicant here was aware of this meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
We sent a email to the applicant.
And the applicant is not here?
And they were also at the NRC meeting.
Yes, I know,
Yeah.
but the applicant is not here?
I don't see them, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I just want to make sure. I guess with that, we're probably in a position to make a decision.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to testify on this issue? Okay, any motion? The recommendation of staff is to reject the application.
Okay, I move to reject the application for Heritage Tree
Second?
nomination.
I take it it's on the basis of the recommendation of the staff.
Commissioner Pauly has seconded. Here we go. It's unanimous 4-0 to reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We are to the consent agenda. Well, I'll just say, all in favor?
Aye.
I guess we have to do it since we have this. Yeah. Commissioner Roth seconded, Commissioner Smith. And here we go. And the vote's unanimous. Mover again, Commissioner Roth and Commissioner Smith, second. Okay. With that, city I think I'm correct. It's going to be the city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Real quickly, 3 things. First, here's the press release that we're going to send out tomorrow. I think I might have emailed this to you, but here's a hard copy. This is for, it looks like the other one, but it's not. It's for all of the steps the city is taking to bring customers back into the downtown. That includes some parking modifications that we made last month, and also some additional steps that are taken there on the front page on the first paragraph. Let's see, next. I would like to know if I have a memo here from the Oregon Department of Transportation, and you may have or may not have encountered Brock Nelson, who's the Intergovernmental Affairs Director for the railroad. There's a lot of discussion about the export coal trains that could come through Oregon City. I have an estimate from ODOT, but they can only go with certain assumptions that they made in this process, and their assumptions are that there would be, this is an ODOT formula, 3.71 trains per day coming through Oregon City.
An average of 3.7.
Yes, an average of 3.71. Mr. Nelson, who I know well and has been actually pretty cooperative with the city when we needed things from the railroad, assures me that it's only 2 trains. I don't know. He also assures me that surfactants work in suppressing coal dust. I know from firsthand experience that they do not. I don't agree with that assessment. But the question is, and I actually received a call from Kurt Schrader's office today and wanting to know if the city commission was going to take a position on a resolution on this issue. Now, a lot of other cities have. I told them I would be asking you. They weren't encouraging us to or not to. There are 3 alternatives that are under study, which is another thing I wanted to share with you. Some of you might have known that, but one of the provisions, it goes on a barge down the Columbia River and directly out through the Port of Portland. The other one goes on a rail carrier through the Columbia Valley to the Port of Portland and out that way. And the third one comes through Oregon City and down to Eugene and over to Coos Bay. And that's the third one is the one that's receiving seems to be the most consternation from some of the cities. So I just want to know if the commission would like us to work on a resolution. My suggestion is if you do a resolution that that we focus on covering the loads, because I think that is probably the only effective way to actually suppress coal dust off the trains. So
when I received this reward, one of the recipients of the reward was Coos Bay, and 2 of their representatives with us at the same table, and we had a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in a different position.
I guess I got a particular feeling from an environmental aspect, but cities like Coos Bay are economically hurting.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it's very difficult for me not to be sympathetic to their plight.
Right.
I would think rather than immediately drafting a resolution, it might be worth putting on the study session agenda before we do
Absolutely.
so and have a discussion at that
Okay.
point. Is that all right?
That's fine. And I will go ahead and include sample resolutions, a few of the newspaper articles from other cities, as well as the letter from ODOT.
Sure.
And it is evolving a little bit. I just don't know the deadline for public comment. So I want you to be aware that they've applied for a permit. That usually means there's a public comment period, and I don't know when that door opens and when it closes. So just know that there's some risk there. And then another reminder that we are working, it might surprise some people that we are working closely with Clackamas County in a collaborative, cooperative spirit on some issues.
Yeah.
And one of the issues we're working with them on is a model uniform ordinance for television production and filming in cities, particularly in parks and so on. And Eric has been working with his contemporary at Clackamas County for some time, and they've got a little flyer here that, and they've met with us 3 or 4 different times. They came to a regional city manager meeting a month ago, and we gave recommendations. And as a contrast to the dark fiber discussion that was at that meeting a year ago, this time they took the recommendations and incorporated into a draft ordinance and changed the proposal based on the input that they received, and I was really pleased with that. So,
and some of this is things that we discuss are things of executive session, but I just wanted to mention Commissioner Pauly and I have been meeting with county commissioners Damon and Lanier, and there's negotiations still going on, but this has been a very productive meeting, and I'm looking optimistically for the resolution of this dark fiber issue. I think we're going to come to a positive resolution. And the discussions have included, to a slight degree, of other areas of concern that we have had, and they seem receptive to look at these in the future. So I think once we get over some of our current hurdles, I think we're going to find things are improving on the communication space. I just wanted to make that comment.
Mayor, that's and then Mr. Conkle again will be acting city manager next week. So.
Incidentally, before we go on to going to my comments and other commissioners' comments of things that have gone on in the last couple of weeks, I think Mr. Conkle is doing a tremendous job. When we had the breakdown with our Natural Resource Committee before, I don't think there was as good a link between the Natural Resource Committee and the Planning Director. Now, Peter Walters is the staff person that works there and is the communicator but Tony Conkle attends several of those meetings and listens to them, and I think the relations between the Natural Resource Committee and the city are not going to be issues this time. I wanted to compliment you on your considering the Natural Resource Committee an important one, and I want to compliment you on your work dedication. I know you've spent many hours working for this city, a lot, and thank you very much, Mr. Conkle. With that, we three of us have gone down to the League of Oregon Cities, and I think we all have comments. I'm going to just talk about one of the sessions because I'm sure some of the other commissioners are going to talk about some of the sessions that they attended, and some of them were in common. But there's this a session that was called Sustainability. I went into it, and it was not what I expected it to be. It, in fact, was a discussion of programs and collaborations between cities and universities to involve students in assessing and working on specific projects. The case studies that were presented there were from Springfield and the involvement of the University of Oregon. Also, Salem and the involvement of Portland State University in getting their students involved in looking at specific projects of interest that the city had. And afterwards I spoke to Mayor Truax of Forest Grove, and he told me, yes, and they have had such project relations with the Pacific University, which is located there at Forest Grove. And it's going to be a little bit too late, but proposed projects can be submitted by November 1st, and decisions are made at a later date in terms of what can be done. I think when the new commission convenes, I would like to put forward a suggestion that we look at maybe some specific projects that we're interested in, how we can involve universities to partner with us. And I asked the specific question whether there have been projects in which community colleges have been involved, and the answer was yes. So I think there's some great opportunities. I think Commissioner Roth had actually mentioned involvement of University of Oregon at a previous commission. So this is a tremendous opportunity for us to perhaps develop some working relations, and a couple of ideas have come to mind. I won't bring them up at this time, but when we come to the goal-setting session next year with the new commission, I would like to see this perhaps brought up and maybe elevated as a great working opportunity with us. And that's that. I was sent at various sessions, but that was one that I particularly wanted to draw out. And Commissioner Roth, I see you have a report to make.
Oh,
No, you were actually, I guess, on that.
I'm on the floor. On the floor is where we're supposed to be recording.
Okay, on the floor.
So make sure you get your name on the floor there.
Okay, well, I attended some. I thought the conference this year was just excellent. I really did enjoy all of the sessions I went to. I had a terrific guest speaker on Saturday afternoon for lunch. That was really good. The one that really said a lot to me was the Hot Topics in Urban Renewal that Carol and I attended together. And what I was amazed at was it was given by several communities that have very successful urban renewal districts, have had successful urban renewal districts and closed them, or people that don't. And they all had this like mind of urban renewal needs to be changed. And there were also legal opinions there, and they were of a like mind that we need to shorten urban renewal district timelines, and we need to work specifically on one project at a time. No more big open-ended districts that last for 30 years. I thought that was very interesting, and that was unanimous. The other things that I would like to talk about is Lieutenant Jim Band has been very, very helpful in getting a neighborhood watch set up here in the McLaughlin neighborhood. We've had a lot of problems lately with some drugs and things, and we're talking about starting a very active neighborhood watch program. And so he's going to be at the meeting tomorrow night, I believe. No, he's sending someone else. But someone will be at the McLaughlin neighborhood meeting tomorrow night to talk about setting up a neighborhood watch program, which will do a lot of, emphasis on the promenade. So
nice.
That will be something we're doing here. And then the other thing I would like to talk about is the Charter Review Committee. We had started setting up, but now with Betty being incapacitated, I'm wondering how we can move this forward, because I don't want it to sit.
Right, and it's on my, I've been thinking about the same thing.
Okay.
So you should be hearing from me again soon.
Okay.
I was just trying to get a feel
Yeah.
for where
I
we're
don't.
at.
I don't think we're going to hold back anything from the fact that she's incapacitated. That's
Yeah.
not going to affect it.
But I just wanted her to have input.
Yeah,
you know,
sure, I
so-
understand. Commissioner Pauly.
Yes, boy, it's been a busy week. I attended the Children's Center Gala, which was wonderful. They raised about $170,000 for the Children's
Wow.
Center. It was very well attended. It was officiated by Steve Dunn, I think, the broadcaster. And it was good in their new center. I also attended the League of Oregon Cities conference and found it very helpful. I immersed myself in urban renewal. I did Urban Renewal 101 and then the hot topics along with Commissioner Roth. And then recruiting volunteers. We did that one together too. And the other one I cannot remember in my tiredness tonight. But it is such a great resource to be down there with other cities. And I, really made the effort to talk to other cities. I talked to the city of Beaverton about their urban renewal and what, the program they have set up for it. And then also in length with Canby. And just seeing what they've done with their Pioneer Industrial Park was amazing. And they're going to close that district very soon. And he told me the dollar amount that it's going to, or the percentage it's going to increase their tax base, and it was very significant. And the process that they went through, at first they weren't able to pass the annexations, but once they got the trust from the citizens, when they saw that there was, progress going and they liked how the project was going, then they were able to pass those annexations in order to have that industrial park to increase their tax base. So that was really interesting to see how that really works in the real world, in a real city close to us. So it was very helpful. That's all I have.
Commissioner Smith?
I didn't attend the League of Oregon Cities, but I do have a couple. What?
You can't talk.
I can talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can talk.
I did. I'm also obviously my other committees involve, or commissions or councils involve Tourism Council, which we've kind of put a little bit on hiatus because several of us were involved in the planning of the bridge celebration. So we kind of have put some of our tourism meetings on hold. I did attend my first CHP meeting, Clackamas Heritage Partners meeting. Clackamas Heritage Partners, of course, the organization that runs the Visitor Center in Oregon City, and that just made an agreement with us to reopen the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center in the future or soon. We're working on that. So the first meeting that I attended was nice discussion. It's the first time I've been part of that organization since I worked there in high school. And I think there's a lot of excitement about it, the possibility of what could happen at the center and getting that back open. The hoops were painted, which may or may not have been noticed by people driving by, which was a major undertaking. It does look better, and so that's done. And so there are some strides in both making the site look better and also talking about what the plan is to get that building used more as we move forward. But at the same time, cautious about the not doing anything too major too quick that causes it to not be successful. So I think we're being very cautious about it. And we're going to be doing some sort of a retreat in November as a board of CHP to kind of talk about those issues. And I know Scott's been meeting with several members from the staff there and also the board that I think is also assisting that move forward. So I really came out of that first meeting, with a renewed vision of what we could do there, and some synergy that's kind of creating some discussion that might lead to some more projects. I've already actually some projects came out of our discussion at the board about what the site could be used in terms of utilizing the amphitheater more, which is really just grass, and what can we do to enhance that space to be more of a community center. And I talked about the possible enhancement of the partnership that we have with the construction class at the high school, and what maybe that partnership could bring to that site. But not only that, some of the other school programs in Oregon City, like CASE and some of the other programs. CASE is an alternative school that I have in Oregon City. But I think there's a lot more partnerships that could assist in doing some good things with the Interpro Center site that doesn't cost the city a whole lot of money. And so I think that those discussions will continue, and I'm excited about it.
Very good. Just to close, I wanted to make a mention. I'll let you come up in a minute. I want to make mention the fact that the city of Oregon City had a very successful urban renewal district, and that's the Hilltop. It was basically the ability to put infrastructure in there to support the Hilltop complex, which houses some of very high employment areas and so forth. So Oregon City has had a very successful urban renewal district program. And then it got closed during Larry Patterson's period there, because probably as much was going to be done there that needed to be done, but we were also in financial straits, so it was nice to get that money back into the city, which is one of the major goals of the urban renewal districts. You want to come forward, an announcement or something?
Yes, just a quick kudo, if I may, please.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, I'm William Gifford. I live in Oregon City, and I just want to give some public kudos to Anita Froman Goodrich for showing up at the Hillendale Neighborhood Association last night, gave a presentation on the water rate situation, and I really want to applaud the effort that the city is making in getting the information out about the water rate. I didn't hear it mentioned tonight, but it's huge, and I think we need to keep that awareness going. And I wanted to thank Aleta very much for coming last night to the Hillendale Association, which we met at the first time at the Living Hope Church. It was very nice facilities, and thank them for doing that.
Thank you. With that, no other comments for the good of the order?
We have executive session, Your Honor.
We are adjourning into an executive session. I don't have the
192-661E, real estate.
Real estate.